Humans of the Cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, we're doing another deck profile coming out of Photon Hypernova. This time, we're looking at Generator. Really, really cool strategy. They got two really nice new cards from the set, and I do think they just play better than people expect. We also just got the ban list, which limited kind of the power ceiling of the format, so more roguish decks like Generator can compete a whole hell of a lot better than it could before. So I'm into it. This is a pretty pure variant. I know there are variants where you take advantage of like a plant engine to just kind of cheat out Mardell, and then Mardell searches you into your generator engine, but we're not doing any of that. We're keeping this pretty pure because when you play pure, you're able to play a lot of like flex spots and defensive cards, which you'll see when we get there. But yeah, without further ado, let's just get into it. Starting off with the monster lineup, triple copies of Lopter, of course. This card's amazing. He's your best normal summon. He tributes himself as a quick effect to summon any generator from deck. 3 copies of the new one, Vala, Satyr of the generator bosses. She has 2 main effects. She can reveal a generator card in hand. She doesn't pitch it, she just reveals it, which is nice. You don't lose the card from hand. To summon herself from hand or graveyard, and then when she's special summoned, she can special summon another generator from your hand or graveyard as well. So she's really good at pairing with some of the bricky ones, because we all know how generators, the biggest downfall of generators has been during their whole tenure, you've had to play enough of their different names because they give you different like payoffs, and when you did, you would just brick on them all the time. So this card helps a bunch with being able to pull these out of the hand, being able to make use of them, so that they are not just entirely bricks for you. So really, really cool. And then for the one-offs, Mardell, she searches your engine. Hell is good for recursion, like as you get into the grind game. Har is your Omni Negate. He also helps rip a card from your opponent's hand. And then Utgarda is a quick effect banish. I don't think any of the other names are really that good. I think there's a world where you cut Hela, because technically she just summons one from grave, but like so does Vala. So I'm not sure if that's as important, but still, you know, it can come up here and there, and yeah, so it works out. So yeah, 10 generator monsters. That is it for the generator monster lineup. Moving on to the rest of the monsters, it's just hand traps. Triple copies of Ash, triple copies of Nibiru, and then triple copies of Gamma with his Lonely Driver. Yeah, these are solid. I would say these are some of the better hand traps in the game. Ash is just so good right now versus every deck that's relevant. It's at worst decent, and at best like turn ending for stuff like Despia on a weaker hand. So yeah, she's really good. Nib's really good in this deck as well, because a lot of your generator guys can tribute as cost. So if you summon out Lopter off of your boss stage, you can tribute him first as like chain link 1, and then Nib is chain link 2. So that way Lopter's already off the field, Nib clears the field, and then Lopter resolves, summoning another generator from the deck, causing your boss stage to give you all the tokens and everything. So they actually pair together quite nicely. And it's also just good in the format. It's good versus Cash, can be good depending on the variant of Despia, and a couple other things as well. And then Gamma. So Gamma is a cantrip we don't see very often, because usually it's not worth playing in the main unless it has like worthwhile value in like going first, like synergistically. And this is one of those decks where if you do not open Lopter, a lot of times you're just like maybe activating boss stage, or maybe just setting back row and passing. Which means no monsters on field, which means Gamma is for sure live for that you know, that time. So you play a good amount with not having monsters on the field. Also, even if you do open Lopter, Lopter tributes himself for cost. So if your opponent attempts to ash you on that, Gamma is definitely really strong there. Yeah, I just think it has enough synergy in the deck that it you know, not only is it just powerful in general, but I think also being able to pair with your engine pretty nicely also gives it an extra edge in playability. So I like it quite a bit. It's been pretty well. Moving on to spells. Triple copies of Boss Stage. You make that 4 with the Terraforming. You just really have to find this card. Your opponent knows it, you know it. They're going to do everything they can to like keep you from getting to this card. They're going to keep you, they're going to do everything they can to keep this card from staying on the field as well. So they're going to be coming at it, Cosmic Cyclones, Twin Twisters, all that stuff in the side for sure. So just be ready for that. From there, triple Prosperity and 1 Called, finishing up the spells. Not a ton of spells here. Honestly, I just don't think there's that many mandatory spells you got to play. I like Prosperity a lot because when I had played Extravagance in the deck prior to the new support coming out. One, the new Extract monster is nice, so you do want to have him, and there's a couple of utility cards as well that could come up, but also you would Extravagance all the time and just like draw one of the bricks, and you're like, oh, that's terrible. Great. And this deck just, and also like post side, you're able to find like board breakers and stuff with this, so like that a lot as well. And called, like I said, Ash is a pain for the deck, so this is like a 40th card. You could cut it for something else if you felt strong enough about it, but to me, you know, Ash is one of the biggest nuisances of the deck, so I'd rather do everything I can to kind of mitigate that biggest weakness when I'm expecting almost every deck to be playing 3 Ash in it at the moment, so brutal. And finishing up, we have traps, 12 of them to be exact, and it's kind of more than normal, but triple metaverse, this is just two things. Not only is this just extra copies of boss stage, so consistency, but also, just like I said before, like there's 2 main things you have to recognize, is that your opponent's going to do everything they can to keep you from getting to boss stage. They're also going to do everything they can to keep you from keeping boss stage up. So even if you get to boss stage, you are not entirely safe, because if they're able to remove it, they can keep you from playing the kind of game you want to. So having Metaverse locked and loaded to put up another boss stage can be absolutely huge at certain points. From there, triple imperm, this is the last hand trap, so 12 total, and I think if you were to ask me today, right this second, I would say these might be the 4 best hand traps in the game. Ash, Gamma, Nib, Imperm, but it is still early in the format, but I still think it's good. Doesn't turn on Thrust or Talent, or Talents. So that's good, and you know, it works. Other than like versus Labyrinth, it's pretty good versus everything else. Triple copies of Solemn Strike. This is another copy of a card that says, hey, fuck your Ash Blossom. Stop doing that to me. Just, you know, it works, and then obviously going first, you can use it on other stuff as well. So it's a pretty good card that like helps you play first. It's actually not bad going second, because even pairing this with boss stage is pretty good going second, because if your opponent just has an Omni Negate, they may do everything they can to like keep boss stage from resolving, and then you're just able to strike to guarantee it's resolving to summon from deck, and that can allow you to kind of be able to hinder your opponent and actually get into a duel going second. And then the last card is Skill Drain. Kind of same thing as Strike, like being able to just flip this into an already set up board from your opponent could just turn everything off, especially if you have it paired with Strike, so it's not even getting negated or popped or anything. And then from there, you know, you could just summon a big boss from your boss stage, and then he could just be bigger than everything your opponent controls, and you just start walking over their stuff. That's the reason I really like this. I guess there's a couple of reasons, right? All the generator monsters tribute for cost, so they can always tribute themselves to make sure they resolve, even under skill drain. And they're also all just like ginormous, right? Even just Har, like your main guy, it's just 3k. So under skill drain, you know, you're still able to just beat your opponent straight over the head. So yeah, really cool here. Also important to note, none of these are once per turn, so drawing these multiples, not a problem at all. In fact, in a lot of scenarios, that can be quite good as long as the rest of your hand is, you know, engine. So that is it for the main. I feel like this is a pretty streamlined, solid version. I think this is a pretty good version to like start with. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's perfect. There's nothing you can do from here, but I do think, you know, you got your 12 hand traps. You got some powerful trap cards. Most of your stuff is at 3 here. It's all consistency. Just get to your generator engine, and then the rest of your hand hopefully is defensive cards. That's the idea. To support the engine, and I think under that notion, I mean, I think it's important to note that you can just go from there and then mess around with what you want. You know, if you don't love Gamma, it's not coming up enough, you're not getting ashed when Gamma's great enough, then from there, obviously, you can move to something like Droplets is another card that's known to be good in this deck, because once you resolve boss stage, you're going to get stuff like all the tokens on field. No, the tokens have to go to grave, so the token's a bad example, but again, you do end up with bricks in hand sometimes, or like extra copy, like maybe the driver, you know what I mean, a dead Gamma, and so something like Droplet should have some free targets to send fairly consistently, and go from there. So there's your main deck, 40 cards there. Into the extra we go. 2 Leviathan, Generator Boss of Shadows, and 2 Jormungandr, the Generator Boss of Eternity. This is really cool. If you don't know what this card does, it's absolutely insane. It is a quick effect to detach as many materials from this card as you want, And then non-targeting, it can take any amount of those cards, or up to the number of cards you detach from your opponent from their hand, not hand, but field or graveyard, and attach it to him. Or I'm sorry, this effect is weird. Okay, so he tags out essentially for Jormungandr and then attaches those materials that you're taking from your opponent to Jormungandr. So essentially it's a non-target take from your opponent's field and or graveyard, and it's not just monsters, it's also spell and traps. So it's essentially like a quick effect non-targeting steal 2 cards and equip them to a Jormungandr, which is actually pretty insanely good. I like this card quite a bit. I think it's actually just like the best rank 9 in Yu-Gi-Oh! Now. Jormungandr doesn't really do much, but you kind of have to have him so that way you can resolve Leviathan. But yeah, 2 is good. I think sometimes the second one could come up, but the first one comes up fairly regularly. A couple other rank 9s that I guess could come up, but whatever. They're mostly just prosperity fodder. 1 copy of Sacred Tree Beast Hyperiton, 1 Enter Blathnir, and 1 9 Lives Cat. Hyperiton's the most relevant one here to me. He is a negate for whatever type of material he currently has on him. And if you activate a spell, he can like grab another spell from grave to attach it to himself. So he could be a monster or a spell negate, even technically a trap negate too at certain points. For a deck that doesn't have a ton of negation via its engine, aside from like Har, this card could come up. But I don't expect it to, so whatever, it's there. Enter Blathnir just banishes a card from somewhere. It can banish a card from your opponent's hand, deck, graveyard, or field, so fine. But also Leviathan's just like 2 cards and it's non-targeting, but I guess this banishes, so it could get rid of something for the whole duel, so that could come up. And then 9 Limbs Cat, this can reborn any level 9 or monster in your opponent's grave. Whatever, it could come up. It's 3,300 attack, so that's cool at least. I don't expect it to come up though, but it's there. So this is just Kashtira Arise Heart. I've kind of been on this for decks that just have extra deck space. I like the idea of siding stuff like Mind Control, Enemy Controller, Change of Heart, or the Tactics for talents. To take your opponent's monster when you play against Kashtira, take anything once they've resolved a Shangri-Ira and standby, to then make your own Arise Heart and just punish them with their own card. It's funny, it's cool. It's, you know, it's whatever. It's just for that matchup, and that's the most represented deck right now. Zeus, kind of same thing. You could also potentially take an opponent's Exceed and just make a Zeus, or you could do it yourself. Like when you make Jormungandr, he doesn't really do that much on the field, so I feel like half the time I'm just going to want to attack with Jormungandr and make a Zeus. Even though you don't really want to wipe your field spell off the field, as long as you still have like access to another copy, it could still be worth just for the interruption. So there's Zeus. 2 Lingaribo, this is for Ibli. You have to play 2 because if Kashtira goes full combo and has Ibli, they'll be able to rip the 1 Lingaribo so that you can't clear the Ibli, and then you just lose. Like your deck literally can't. Like your deck doesn't do much. Like you'd have to like open Jormungandr or a hand trap, not Jormungandr, a Lopter, normal summon them, make a generic link 2, and then like still have access to the field spell. But even in that instance, you're like wasting your best starters just to like, you're wasting like a good starter just to like not auto lose the game. So by playing these, you just have, you know, an easy out to Ibli. Then 1 copy of Lambda, 1 copy of Ahashima. You can play anything here, to be honest, but Ahashima is just funny to me. Because if you had, if you put 2 9s on the field and you already had, and you still had 1 in hand, kind of breaking up, you could link those for Ahashima to then summon 1 9 from hand and 1 from grave to still make like Leviathan, I think it's Leviathan, under Ahashima, and then Ahashima says when Exceed under it uses its effect, it can pop a spell or trap. So not only will you have the take 2 from Leviathan, but then you also have a pop 1. I don't expect it to come up much. It's super droppable card. It's prosperity fodder, but yeah. And then Lambda, like Lambda theoretically could come up where you just kind of have like a dead Gamma in hand because you've had stuff on board. You just get enough monsters out, you could just straight up make Lambda to make that Gamma live in a certain instance. So that's there. And the last 2 cards are for Gamma. If you resolve Gamma on your turn, I wanted something to feel like I could go into easily. You can make Lambda, that's for sure, but also you could make Omega or Scarlight which is very powerful as well. So if you're going first, you're usually just making Omega, ripping an extra card out of the opponent's hand, letting them only play with like 4 that turn, or on their next turn. And then if you're going second, you Gamma, make Scarlight, pop their board, deal a bunch of damage, and works out. So these cards are cool, just the best generic options to me, for just like resolving Gamma on your own turn. 1 first, 1 second, go from there. But yeah, that's pretty much the deck list. It's a really cool list. Like I said, this one's pretty streamlined. There's not a ton of like super crazy spice here, but I do think if you get a little bit too creative sometimes, it can end up hurting you in the end. You know, and it's not as practical as it otherwise could be, or consistent, depending on what choices you made. But all things considered, I'm pretty happy with the deck. I think it's very cool. I'm excited to mess around with it a little bit more, see if there's anything else to work with. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down below. Is there anything I'm not showing off here? Like I said, streamlined version, but tech-wise that you think could come up enough where it's worth looking into? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But other than that, I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching as always, guys. I will see you in the next video. Subscribe if you haven't. You want to see more deck profiles from me down the line. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.